Welcome to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, science of differentiation, the art of living your life correctly. According to your unique design, you have a unique cosmic imprint, and you may start learning about your uniqueness by listing the gates of your chart. Human design shows us the chance that we have to diminish the resistance of life, to attract what is correct for our cross of incarnation. Today, you may learn about Hexagram 34, the power of the great. Power, gate 34, is part of fourth trimester of SIRIUS, where we accomplish our purpose through mutation, transformation, spirit. Gate 34 corresponds to Hades, the archetype of the Greek god of the Underworld that ruled over the dead. Hades means determination, transport, taking over, man or Laos, hence Hades' function as a god who takes people's souls after death and transports them to the afterlife. Hades was known for his helmet, the Helm of Darkness or the Cap of Invisibility, and his companion, Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the entrance to the Underworld. Zodiac sign, Sagittarius. Gate 34 is the basis of integration channels, connecting in different channels with gates 2057. Also, gate 34 flows within the centering circuitry when it's connected to the other end with gate 10, the behavior of self. Keyword, self-empowerment, empowering. Center, sacral. That gives the energy for the power of productivity, fertility, vital energy. The response, sexual availability, reproduction. The harmonic gates are 57, 10, 20. Let's see each channel. A, with gate 57, the gentle, intuitive clarity, it forms the generated integration channel of power, a design of an archetype. B, with gate 10, treading, the behavior of the self, it forms the generated, self-centering channel of exploration, a design of following one's own beliefs. C, with gate 20, contemplation. Now, it forms the generated channel of charisma, an integration channel, a design where thoughts must become deeds. The opposite gate is number 20, contemplation, now. Recognition and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action. Aminoacid, asparagine. Relevant organ, sacral plexus. Tarot card associated, Two of Wands. Let me tell you about asparagine, some important information based on my research, not on my knowledge. I'm not a specialist in this area, but I need to understand how amino acid works in our body in order to fully integrate the energy and the activity of each gate. The correlation with the amino acid of the gate in the channel is another aspect that brings insights. GT34 in Hades, fourth trimester connects with leucine of gate 20 as Maya archetype of second trimester of form, civilization. Alanine of gate 57 as Christ archetype of third trimester of relationships and co-creating. Arginine of gate 10 as Vishnu archetype of fourth trimester of spirit and mutation. So, gate 34 uses the sacral power of the great, differently, depending upon the channel it forms with any of these three gates. The channel is formed with your own gates, 20, 10, or 57, or with these gates that are present in other person's body graph. There is a risk of using your power differently, inconsistently, based on the persons that are present in your life. This is Ahi, you need to know your own 34th gate, to use it authentically, diminishing any type of conditioning, or at least being aware of it. Asparagine is a polar amino acid that is, generally, non-essential in humans. Asparagine is an amino acid closely related to aspartic acid and an important component of proteins. First isolated in 1932 from asparagus, from which its name is derived, asparagine is widely distributed in plant proteins. It is one of several so-called non-essential amino acids in warm-blooded animals. They can synthesize it from aspartic acid. Here, we have to note that aspartic acid is associated with gate 28 and 32 of Minerva in third trimester of relationships. Asparagine also plays a role in nucleotide biosynthesis and ammonia metabolism. Recently, it was shown that asparagine plays a role as an amino acid exchange factor, meaning that intracellular asparagine levels regulate uptake of serine, arginine, and histidine. It is also slowly coming into light that asparagine could become essential when glutamine is limited, and that asparagine biosynthesis is fundamental for tumor mitochondrial respiration. All of the above highlight the importance of asparagine metabolism in both health and disease. Asparagine's primary significance in the human body lies in its role as a building block for proteins and its involvement in various metabolic pathways. One of its key roles is in the synthesis of asparagine-linked glycoproteins, which are crucial for cellular communication, adhesion, and immune response. As a non-essential amino acid that is involved in the metabolic control of cell functions in nerve and brain tissue, asparagine is biosynthesized from aspartic acid and ammonia by asparagine synthetase. Asparagine is critical for the production of the body's proteins, enzymes, and muscle tissue. Supplements of this amino acid are claimed to balance nervous system function. Asparagine is important in the metabolism of toxic ammonia in the body through the action of asparagine synthase, which attaches ammonia to aspartic acid in a specific reaction. Asparagine can carry and release amino groups safely between tissues, helping balance nitrogen metabolism and prevent ammonia toxicity. Via the enzyme asparaginase, asparagine versus aspartate, it is linked to the citric acid Krebs cycle. Asparagine is a neurotransmitter precursor. Though not itself a neurotransmitter, asparagine's conversion to aspartate, an excitatory neurotransmitter, means it indirectly influences neuronal signaling. Adequate asparagine supports synthesis of glycoproteins in myelin sheaths, promoting healthy nerve conduction. Many proliferative cells, such as lymphocytes, tumor cells, have high asparagine demands. It supports nucleotide synthesis and protein production. Proper asparagine levels help maintain lymphocyte function and antibody production. By accepting excess amino groups, asparagine formation helps lower free ammonia, which is neurotoxic in high concentrations. Through its metabolic interconversions, it contributes indirectly to pathways, like the malate aspartate shuttle, that manage cellular redox balance. Asparagine is abundant in asparagus, its namesake, dairy, eggs, meat, soy, legumes, and whole grains. Briefly, asparagine is generally found in animal sources, dairy, whey, beef, poultry, eggs, fish, lactalbumin, seafood. Plant sources, seaweed, spirulina, potatoes, soy protein isolate, tofu. I've read that heating a mixture of asparagine and reducing sugars or other source of carbonyls produces acrylamide in food. These products occur in baked goods such as French fries, potato chips, and toasted bread. Acrylamide is converted in the liver to glycitamide, which is a possible carcinogen. For cancer therapy, L-asparaginase, an enzyme depleting asparagine, is used in certain leukemias, exploiting cancer cells' dependency on extracellular asparagine. Generally unnecessary in healthy individuals, but can support recovery in catabolic states or certain metabolic disorders under medical supervision. In summary, asparagine is far more than a building block. It's a versatile nitrogen carrier, a key participant in glycoprotein formation, a supporter of neural and immune health, and a buffer against metabolic stress. Maintaining balanced levels through a varied diet ensures these vital processes run smoothly. I hope you found at least some information being useful for the understanding of your body graph. This is not an advice, it's just information to be used for deep diving into human design gates as they are always interconnected. So, since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of Gate 34, you also know the benefits of the amino acid associated with the behavior of this placement. You have the elements to keynote the message of this gate. If you have this gate active in your chart, take your time. Compose the key phrase of this gate and feel how it resonates. Leave a comment, share your insights and understandings. Now let's have a look to the energy of Gate 34, the power of the great. Power. Power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. Gate 34 sits in the sacral center and is known as the power of the great. At its purest, it is raw, life force energy, an almost primal surge of can-do that wants to respond, to engage, to move. But like any great power, it carries a paradox. Without direction or purpose, it can burn indiscriminately. When channeled with awareness, it becomes a fountain of service. The power of the great. This comes from the I Ching and refers to a kind of power that is deeply rooted, enduring, and truly impactful. In human design, this gate carries raw, generative life force energy, but it is not meant to be wild or uncontrolled. The great part isn't about dominance, fame, or brute strength. It's about the potential for aligned, sustainable, and empowering action. Talking about power, this gate pulses with pure, powerful energy from the sacral center, the center of work, life force, and sexuality. It's the most potent gate of raw sacral power in the chart. But, and this is crucial, power alone is not enough. It must be applied consciously. Power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. This is the valuable lesson of Gate 34. I use my power as myself for myself, and through my actions, you will also be empowered. Raw power can be destructive or selfish if used without awareness. This is the power to follow your own convictions, explore your deep convictions, and bring them into manifestation with your strategy and authority. True greatness arises when you act from your authentic inner authority and use your energy to empower yourself, for yourself, in ways that will benefit others or serve a higher purpose. It's not about proving you're powerful, it's about using that power responsibly for integration purposes with a self-empowerment response in order to finally make a sustainable contribution from your real and authentic self. Remember that 34th gate is part of integration channel. You use your power to empower yourself, and by doing so, your actions empower others. Yet, this sacral gate either has a powerful energy and manifestation or does not have the power at all. It's an immutable sign, Sagittarius, so the energy, the power is either big or it drops down suddenly. It's a 4th trimester gate, this indicating that the energy is channeled through spirit. You use the energy for being satisfied, successful, happy, or to gain my peace, according to your type. This gate is interested for its power to be directed towards profound knowing, and this way to be able to share and contribute to the greater good through influence, the influence of self-empowerment. Gate 34 is pure sacral energy, sacral life force, your internal engine. It's the difference between having energy and not. It's the raw fuel that, when you're truly responding, not initiating, gives you sustainable drive. If your sacral is defined, your strategy is to wait to respond. Gate 34 will only ignite when something in the outer world calls to you. That response ensures the power is used wisely rather than out of compulsion. When it's working well, you act when you have the energy and response, especially important for generators and manifesting generators. You empower others by simply being yourself, responding to life, and engaging in work that energizes you. Your actions have impact and alignment, Not because you're trying to be great, but because you're following your natural flow. When the energy is distorted in this gate, you might overextend, burn out, or try to force things. Power might be used for ego, control, or selfish gain, disregarding the influence upon others. There can be a tendency to act without waiting for the right response, leading to resistance. The Hades archetype makes an unique imprint on this gate. Mythologically, Hades rules the underworld, the hidden realm of transformation, of resources buried deep. Gate 34 echoes that undersurface potency. There is a hidden strength in Gate 34. Like Hades, this power often works unseen in the subterranean mechanics of life. It's not about showmanship, but about whether you have the internal spark to act when called. The internal spark might be different, depending on the gates that comes in the channel with 34. It will be either 20 or 57 or 10th gate. Hades' domain is also about transformational fire, where matter is recycled, death becomes rebirth. Gate 34's energy, once harnessed, can fuel profound transformation in both self and those around you. Integrating the threads, we need to remember some useful messages. Wait to respond with awareness. Don't push your sacral energy into every open door. Wait for a clear yes in your gut. Then bring not just your power, but your network support. Use Hades' wisdom. Remember that the deepest strengths are often hidden. Cultivate quiet confidence and let your power arise naturally, like a spring from the underworld. In essence, Gate 34 is the engine, Hades is its subterranean forge. Together, they remind us that true greatness isn't merely the capacity to act, but how you make the choice to use that capacity, to integrate, to survive, and to finally make a contribution to the greater good through the influence of your self-empowered actions. Gate 34 is a powerhouse, but it teaches us that true greatness is not in sheer force, but in aligned action that contributes, through influence, to the well-being of others. When you use your energy with awareness and in response, you embody the full potential of this gate. Let's see what Ra Uruhu told us about this gate, Inline Companion. I quote, "When you go from the 14.6 to the first line of the 34, you step into another process, but it is a continuing process in that sense. The 34th gate and the 20, the 40, and the 37, and the 23 and 43 are the three oppositions in the Zodiac that form definitions in the Rave chart. You are dealing with a high level of commonality here. In other words, there is a greater abundance of those 6 gates because they happen more often in the polarity of opposition of Sun-Earth and nodes. This 34th gate of power is an extremely complex gate. It does not just look for one thing. It has 3 different ways in which it can go, and it is a very intense power field. The 34th gate, due to its commonality, has a very special value, like the 3rd gate. The 3rd gate tells us about the nature of what it is to be alive, the nature of confusion, and that the transcending of confusion leads to order. This is the nature of life, but the 34th gate speaks of the energy for survival itself. It is one thing to be alive, but it is another thing to die. The 3 is not there to keep us alive. The 34 is. It is the nature of the 34th gate to enhance our survival of individuals. It is literally there to fuel life itself. The power to individuate comes out of the 34th gate. End of quote. I hope I've piqued your curiosity, because we go on now to climb the 6 lines ladder of Gate 34. It's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 34th gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 34 plays its role for our conscious sun and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 34, line 1, the bully. The indiscriminate use of power. Let's think about some keywords that come out of this message. Instinctual response, survival behavior, selfishness or protection, misuse of energy, immaturity of power, breaking it down practically. What does the bully mean here? This doesn't necessarily mean someone is an actual bully in a malicious sense. It means that when power is not yet conscious, not yet refined or aligned, it can show up as forcefulness, pushing others around, acting impulsively, using energy without awareness of the impact. It's power for power's sake, like a child discovering strength and smashing things just because they can. Imagine a manifesting generator child with this gate and line in their chart. They may run around, knocking things over, grabbing toys from others, not out of cruelty, but because they're acting on raw impulse, not yet aware of how their energy affects others. As an adult, this could look like interrupting others constantly, taking over projects without being asked, dominating conversations or situations, acting before responding, not waiting for sacral or taking the lead when not abiding by your own authority and strategy, doing too much, based on impulsive behavior rather than true self or inner authority. The indiscriminate use of power could mean that the power doesn't yet know when to act, how to act, or why to act. It's like having a high-powered engine with no brakes or steering wheel. The energy is there, but direction and refinement are missing. This line holds the potential for growth. Once awareness comes in, the person learns when to use their power and when to hold back, how to respond rather than initiate or dominate. That real power is not about control, but about self-empowerment, meaning you use your power starting with the self for yourself, to use the power for integration, for survival, based on authority and strategy. This way you will know what are you looking for: satisfaction, success, peace, surprise. When this line is evolved, the person may become a strong protector of others, use their energy to support and defend rather than dominate, lead by responding wisely rather than reacting impulsively, know their power but not need to prove it, use their energy to survive, to integrate within any kind of environment by responding with the power of Hades that often works unseen with an inherent and specific determination. This is a real transformative power for self and subsequently for the others. Gate 34.1, the bully, is about learning how to temper raw power. At first, it may show up as clumsy or overwhelming, but with awareness and correct response, it becomes a foundation for powerful, responsible action that uplifts rather than overpowers. Ra Uru said that when you look at any gate, the first line speaks for its nature. The nature of what it is to empower survival, the basis and foundation of empowering survival, is to be a bully. Above the lines it says, power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. Its display. Power people never have to use their power all the time. They can show it. If you watch animals confronting each other because they have a conflict over territory, they put on an incredible show. Listen to two cats arguing over who belongs in the backyard. This is an incredible performance of display. There is no real power being used. The power is secondary. Someone who has the 34th gate in an undefined sacral center is not the kind person that will be able to push their power out all the time. End of quote. Saturn exalted. The less negative, the resort to power as a manifestation of frustration. The energy to display power as a response to frustration. Gate 34, in brief, is about sacral life force. Gate 34 is raw responding energy, your motor for yes, no in the world. It wants to move when something energizes you. Strategy is wait to respond in a defined sacral center. You're designed to let life present you with stimuli, then let your gut sacral light up before engaging. Let's remember line 1, the investigator theme. Line 1 is the researcher, always digging for the solid ground beneath. You naturally observe, analyze, and seek certainty before you act. Your power feels safest when you've done your homework. Frustration often arises when you're pushed to act without that base. Saturn exalted in this line. 1. In astrological symbolism, Saturn represents discipline, boundaries, structure, and the lessons of responsibility. When Saturn is exalted in line 1 of gate 34, it brings 1. Heightened self-discipline. You resist impulsive surges of power until you've structured them. 2. Frustration as teacher. Blocks or delays aren't just obstacles, they're signals to refine your plan, strengthen your foundation. 3. Responsible power. You feel a weight of, if I use this energy, it must be well-directed and sustainable. We add to all these elements the line theme. Resort to power as manifestation of frustration. Putting it all together, this exaltation, 1, is the frustration trigger. Whenever your sacral energy can't find a safe, well-researched outlet, you experience inner tension. 2 is about power response. That tension drives you to assert or display power, sometimes abruptly, because you need to clear the blockage. 3 brings Saturn's call, but with Saturn exalted, you learn to pause. Use frustration as a cue to return to investigation. In real life, it might be useful to take some notes. 1. Notice the frustration early. Your gut tightens before an outburst. Catch it, name it, and ask, what groundwork is missing? 2. Research your next move. Before you power forward, spend a moment gathering facts or sketching a quick plan, even if it's just bullet points in your head. 3. Channel into structured action. Instead of raw force, direct your sacral surge into a specific task or project with clear steps. 4. Set boundaries. Saturn demands limits. Decide in advance how much time or energy you'll commit so you don't overshoot and burn out. 5. Reflect and refine. After acting, review what worked or didn't. Each cycle of frustration leads to investigation, then action strengthens your reservoir of reliable power. Gate 34. Line 1 with Saturn exalted teaches you that frustration isn't a flaw, but it is your inner alert system. When you feel that tightening, don't barrel ahead impulsively. Use it as a signal to investigate, structure your response, and then unleash your sacral power in a disciplined way that truly moves things forward. Pluto in detriment, the comeuppance that is the inevitable destiny of the bully. The ever-present risk of retaliation to power displays. Pluto symbolizes transformation, depth, and the underworld of hidden forces. In detriment, its energy is weakened or distorted, manifesting as 1. Obsession with control, a compulsion to dominate situations or people to feel safe. 2. Fear of loss, deep anxiety that any perceived weakness invites attack or subversion. 3. Harsh retribution. When that control is challenged, responding with punitive force rather than measured transformation. In Gate 34, Line 1, this shows up as the comeuppance of the bully. The idea that anyone who bludgeons others with raw power will eventually face an adverse reaction. 1. Spot the bully within. Notice when your sacral surge isn't a genuine yes, but a defensive strike to push others back. And ask yourself, am I acting from certainty or from fear of losing control? 2. Ground before you engage. Before sending power out, pause long enough to verify your facts or intentions. This prevents mistimed or misdirected actions that invite retaliation. 3. Transform rather than punish. If you feel wronged, resist the urge for immediate payback. Instead, channel Pluto's deeper gift, Use the energy to rebuild or redirect the situation toward growth. 4. Anticipate resistance. Any display of force can trigger counter force. Plan your moves with empathy. Consider how others might perceive your power and adjust to minimize reactive blowback. 5. Learn from backlash. When retaliation does occur, treat it as feedback. What exactly provoked the pushback? Use that insight to refine your approach and rebuild trust. Gate 34. Line 1. With Pluto in detriment, warns that unchecked sacral power used as a weapon breeds its own downfall. By grounding yourself in investigation, transforming conflict rather than punishing, and anticipating others' responses, you can avoid the cycle of bully. From Line Companion, we have the valuable description of Ra'uruhu regarding these planetary placements in this line and also regarding the gate. I quote, "The bully, the indiscriminate use of power, Saturn exalted. The less negative, the resort to power as a manifestation of frustration. To stay alive is a frustrating process because it is an ongoing, moment-by-moment, day-by-day process. You can have a job and feed yourself today, but if you do not go to work the next day, then you give all that up. How will you survive? It is an ongoing process of releasing that power." Pluto in detriment. The comeuppance that is the inevitable destiny of the bully. In order to survive, you have to be able to show your power. If you don't do that, you will only stay alive out of the generosity or kindness of others. Don't bet on it. You have to live out your own power to stay alive. The energy to display power as a response to frustration. The frustration is all about, don't get in the way of my survival. We are here to be able to survive alone. That is our nature. It doesn't matter whether you have the 34th gate or not. You get it all the time from other people or transits. The ever-present risk of retaliation to power displays. This line does not say, use power. This is the indiscriminate display of power. It is not the use of power. The bully does not really have to do anything to you other than scare you. The 34.1 realizes that it has this power, and it knows that if it does not show this power, it will be difficult for it to stay alive. This is the whole thing for human beings to understand. I meet so many people who, through conditioning, have been made weak. I am a pure individual, and I ride this wave of how wonderful it is to be empowered and alone in the survival of life. How difficult it is for people to show their power. How difficult it is for them to see that there is somebody in their life that isn't good for them, and they do not have the power to defend their survival and say, please, I cannot survive with you. People who have jobs that they hate and do not have the power to say, I cannot do this. This is not for me. The 34th gate goes to the 57. It goes to the creation of the archetype for survival, to be alive as a human being. The fear of the 57th gate is the fear of tomorrow, the fear of consequences, the fear of what can happen to us. It is so important to understand that the very basis of power is display. In the animal world, display works most of the time, and conflict is generally avoided, and survival is ensured. Somebody usually backs down, and it is over. This is the beginning of the use of power. It is not about violence. It is about the display of one's power to survive on one's own. After all, this is individual. The 34 and the 27 are the only gates of the sacral center that are pointed at a functional awareness. As we go through the lines of the 34, please understand that there are so many different variations of this. The 34 connected to the 20 is always displaying their power. This is part of their doing. The 34 connected to the 10 has a totally different process because it has to do with the empowerment of their identity. The 34 and the 57 is another process. So again, we are looking at the basis of this as energies, but how it actually works out in someone's chart is dependent on what is the nature of their integration system And how is this working in that configuration? Not simply what it is in the gate itself, because again, there are so many different qualities at work. When the 34 is connected to the 57, the power is aware. An aware bully is very different from an unaware bully. The awareness about what it takes to survive. I know what it takes to survive is different from the blind need to survive. Please understand that you have to take into consideration the way it operates in the actual design. End of quote. Gate 34, line 2, momentum. This is the theme of natural power that builds and expresses through flow. What does momentum mean here? The second line in human design is always the natural, projectional, or shy line. It often carries a natural talent that isn't always fully conscious. It doesn't want to be pushed. It wants to be called out or recognized. So, Gate 34.2 combines raw power from Gate 34 with the natural flow and rhythm of line 2. Momentum. Here is the natural buildup and release of energy when left undisturbed. Imagine someone with this gate line in their chart. Here's how it might show up in real life. They can naturally tap into great energy to get things done, but only when not interrupted. If left alone to respond to life and follow their energy, they build momentum like a train, slow at first, then unstoppable. But if you try to rush, push, or direct them, their energy short circuits. They thrive on rhythm and doing things in their own timing. Think of it like this. Momentum is sacred. If you let it build naturally, it creates powerful, effective movement. But if you interrupt it with demands or pressure, it can stall or collapse. What happens when it's misused? If the person pushes themselves to act without response, they burn out. If others expect immediate action, they may feel frustrated or misunderstood. If they try to force their power, they lose the natural momentum that makes them effective. When you aligned in your expression of this line, you trust your sacral response to guide your actions. You allow your energy to build naturally, not rushed or forced. You're most powerful when left to your own rhythm and flow. You act when the timing is right, and then you move with impact. Gate 34, line 2. Momentum teaches us that power doesn't have to be loud or forced. It's about trusting the natural rhythm of your energy, letting it build organically, and not allowing others to hijack your flow. When you do that, you become a natural powerhouse in motion. Mars exalted. The ability, when victory is in sight, not to lose perspective. The power that grows when victory is in sight. Line 2, the Hermit is about innate talent. The second line is naturally gifted. Skills often come easily, and you may find yourself called out by others to share what you know. Need for solitude. To refine those gifts, you require quiet time alone. Too much external pressure can scatter your focus and dilute your power. Mars is exalted in line 2, with the attributes I've mentioned. Mars governs assertion, courage, the art of strategic conquest, and the raw impulse to go on the offensive. Exalted here means Mars energy is balanced, disciplined, and amplified in its highest expression. 1. You know exactly where to apply your force. No wasted effort. 2. You assert yourself without letting anger or ego hijack your aim. 3. You're willing to bide your time in the shadows until the moment is ripe, not losing perspective when victory is in sight. 1. Maintain the hermit's retreat. Even when success is close to you, protect your inner stillness. Too many distractions at the final stretch can affect clarity. 2. Exalted Mars grants you the skill to hold fire. Resist the urge to finish them off too soon. Use that restraint to survey the full landscape and anticipate last-minute shifts. 3. Each measured, confident step feeds your sacral surge. Rather than burning out in one big push, You build power steadily as you close in on your goal. Here are some practical takeaways that might be useful. Guard your sanctuary. Block out noise, such as emails, social media, well-meaning advice, until you've truly crossed the finish line. Your best insights come in solitude. Time your strike. Watch for the perfect window. Exalted Mars knows that pressing go at exactly the right moment multiplies impact. Use simple rituals, deep breaths, a short walk, a moment of meditation, to reset your mind whenever impatience or fear of stalling creeps in. Acknowledge each milestone. That recognition fuels your sacral motor and keeps your energy positive rather than punitive. In essence, Gate 34, Line 2 with Mars Exalted gifts you with the warrior's poise, knowing when to hold fire, when to strike, and how to let your inner hermit recharge you. By keeping perspective as the finish line approaches, you transform raw, sacral energy into a steady, ever-growing power that doesn't just win battles, but paves the way for what follows. Venus in detriment. A tendency to be emotionally carried away by the smell of victory. The power for growth limited by impatience. Venus rules pleasure, harmony, and the social art of relating. In detriment, its gifts become distorted. You're easily swept away by the allure of success or approval, chasing that feel-good high. Impatience with process. The desire for harmony and reward can shortcut the slow, steady building of true mastery. You might prize the trophy more than the teamwork or skills that create lasting success. Carried away by the smell of victory. This detriment is about emotional surge. Your sacral fires flare at the prospect of success, an intoxicating rush that can hijack your perspective. Risk of burnout. Chasing that high too fast depletes your reserve. When things don't immediately happen, you can feel deflated or resentful. Impatience makes you to leap ahead before you've deepened your craft, meaning later you may hit walls that set you back further. Gate 34, Line 2, gives you a natural hermit-like mastery. Venus in detriment pulls you toward the emotional high of victory. By deliberately slowing down, valuing each step, and anchoring yourself in private practice, you transform that impatient rush into a sustainable power that grows steadily and enjoys every phase of the journey. If you listen to the message of Ra, you'll have a more complete understanding. I quote, "When you come to the second line, they project outwards. The first line is not what you think. The first line is not the obvious bully. Like all first lines, they can be hidden bullies, and if you scratch them the wrong way, you will see a display of power. The second line is always projecting out this power. I have the power to survive." In the Black Book, this is all about victory. It is not about winning anything. It is about I can do it. I can survive. I can be my archetype. I can follow my convictions. I can do what I want to do. I mentioned all the other gates in that statement. Momentum, Mars exalted, the ability when victory is in sight, not to lose perspective. Venus in detriment, a tendency to be emotionally carried away by the smell of victory. My power is bringing me to the capacity to survive. I want to use more power. Because momentum is a projected field, these people can really crumble. They look enormously powerful because they project out all this power, when underneath they are very insecure and very frightened. They need to know that the victory is there, otherwise they fall apart. The power that grows when victory is in sight, or the power for growth limited by impatience. This is the negative side. The whole process of being a second line is that you don't really know what is there, and you have to deal with the consequences of your actions all the time because you cite going to be found out. What people say about the 34.2, their bark is worse than their bite. They bark a lot, but they don't always bite. End of quote. Gate 34, line 3, machismo, the indiscriminate display of power. In this context, machismo refers to exaggerated masculinity or over-the-top displays of strength and dominance. It's performance-based power, showing off strength for the sake of being seen or proving something. It's often compensatory, power being displayed without awareness, purpose, or alignment. The indiscriminate display of power. This means power is being used just to show that you have it, without caring why, how, or what effect it has. There's no filter, no strategy, no response, just impulsive action or a need to be seen as strong. It's like revving a powerful engine in a crowded parking lot, not because you need to go somewhere, but to make noise and get attention. Let's see an example. Scenario 1. At work. Someone jumps into a project, takes control, talks over others, dominates meetings, not because it helps, but because they want to appear competent or powerful. They burn energy proving, not responding. Scenario 2. In relationships. They might overcompensate by acting tough or controlling, even when gentleness or cooperation is needed. They respond to vulnerability with force rather than presence. Scenario 3. As a younger person. This can show up as bravado, risk-taking, or aggression, doing things to prove worth or strength without checking if it's appropriate or needed. As a basic, energetic pattern, line 3 in human design is trial and error, adaptive, and experiential. So this person learns through mistakes by displaying power too much, too soon, or in the wrong context. They eventually learn when to hold it back. With time, they learn about how, when, and why to use their energy. By learning the lesson, you get the aligned expression of this energy. You no longer need to prove your power. You know it, and use it with purpose and precision. You respond rather than react. You lead through empowered action, not force. You understand that restraint is often more powerful than expression. The distorted expression of this line is about acting to prove worth, not from inner authority. It's about draining yourself by trying to impress. You might alienate others through aggressive or insensitive behavior. Gate 34.3, machismo, is about learning that power doesn't need to be displayed to be real. The line starts off blunt and showy, but through experience, it gains the wisdom to use power purposefully, not performatively. Saturn, exalted, the great malefic, where machismo, unfortunately, is invariably backed up by power. This is an exaltation only in that it is natural and not contrived. The display of power that defines any role. Saturn governs structure, discipline, and the lessons of hard reality. Exalted here means its energies, while heavy, express themselves naturally and powerfully. 1. Authentic authority. There's no posturing. Your machismo or strength feels earned because you've been tested. 2. Role definition through duty. You inhabit roles, leader, protector, builder, with a sense of responsibility that's unforced. 3. Structural backbone. Your setbacks, line 3, and Saturn's discipline combine to give you a solid frame that can bear real weight. Machismo, backed by power. 1. Your confidence doesn't rely on slogans or image. It springs from having weathered challenges and emerged standing. 2. When you step into a role, your presence alone carries authority. People feel that you've paid your dues, so your directives land with impact. 3. Without self-awareness, that same gravitas can come across as domineering. Your power feels like a club rather than a compass. In essence, Gate 34, line 3, with Saturn exalted gives you a raw, earned authority. Your machismo carries real weight because it's forged in setbacks. To harness it wisely, root every display of power and service, temper it with self-awareness, and build rituals or structures that keep your authority aligned with constructive purpose. Mercury in detriment, a reasoned and calculated display. The communication of disinformation, the calculated display of power in order to define the role. Line 3 is about learning by doing. Line 3 throws you into trial and error. You test boundaries, fail, then refine. Each stumble is data. Your power grows as you integrate lessons from past missteps. Mercury rules language, thought, and exchange of information. In detriment, its weak position, it can produce calculated rhetoric, speech crafted to persuade or control rather than to clarify. Disinformation and spin, half-truths, selective framing, even outright misdirection. Defensive rationalizing, using clever arguments to justify mistakes or missteps. The sentence of this detriment can be unpacked to extract the practical message for real-life purpose. First theme is reasoned and calculated display. You deploy your sacral energy with precision. Your movements, decisions, even posture, are choreographed to project authority. Second part, disinformation as tool. Words become a mechanism to shape others' perceptions, emphasizing certain facts, omitting others, so that your role, leader, expert, protector, feels self-evident. Third part, role definition through messaging. Rather than raw force, you assert power via narrative control. Your speeches, directives, or public persona are engineered to cement your standing. Gate 34, line 3, with Mercury in detriment, handles power through calculated messaging and risks slipping into disinformation or spin. By anchoring your words in verified facts, owning your missteps, and using communication to serve collective clarity, you transform that shadowy cleverness into a compelling, trustworthy authority. Real insights come out when listening to the words of Ra-Uruhu. I quote, "We saw that the first line knows that it has power and that it may have to use its power to protect itself to survive. We know that the second line projects out this power and can be found to be weak inside, a paper tiger. When you get to the third line, you get to machismo. You get to the real display of power. Remember something about the nature of the third line. It is the adaptive line. It is preparing the ground for the transpersonal process. It knows that there is something else at work. Because it is trial and error, it will make mistakes in its display of power. The indiscriminate display of power. Saturn exalted. The great malefic, where machismo unfortunately is invariably backed up by natural and uncontrived power. In the White Book, the display of power that defines any role. Understand what that is all about. The third line is saying, I cannot be a surviving human being unless power display is part of my role. These people will look for ways in which they can display their power in life to enhance their survival success. In other words, I will not succeed as a businessman unless I am really powerful and display my power. I will not succeed as a lover until I beat up my woman. This is the need to display power in any role to guarantee the survival of their way and their conviction. There is a great deal of violence that can come out of this line because it is about trial and error. There is a lot of battering that goes on. Children, couples. It is the display of power, and unless the mistakes become part of an awareness process, every role gets imbued with this. Mercury in detriment, a reasoned and calculated display, the communication of disinformation. I will cut your throat unless you pay your bill. That is not necessarily true, but it frightens. The person that is saying that to you is using that power in their role because they will not be able to feed themselves unless they get that bill back, and they have no way of asking nicely. They have to display their power. It may not be true. They may not come and cut your throat, but pay them, will you? It is so easy to take that description and say, terrible. It is not true. There are certain roles that require that kind of display of power. Nothing can be done about that. That is the nature of being human after all. When push becomes shove, you'd better be ready. This is a competitive field. We are here to survive, and there are all kinds of competition for survival in the world, on all kinds of levels, and the reality is that certain roles need to have this power. Otherwise, you can never get to the sixth line, its resonance, and recognize what common sense is in terms of what power is really for. Trial and error is a learning process. End of quote. Gate 34, line 4, triumph. The freedom and absolute victory to unlimited use of power. Now, we know that Gate 34, the power of the great, holds raw sacral power, the energy to act, work, and respond. It's about empowerment, not domination. Power becomes great when it's used wisely, in response, and in service of something greater than ego. Line 4 is the triumph, with the key line, the freedom and absolute victory to unlimited use of power. 1. Triumph. What does it mean here? Triumph implies having achieved full power, success, or dominance. In this line, it represents the moment when the nothing stands in your way anymore. You're recognized, respected, or in a position where your strength is established. 2. The freedom and absolute victory. This is the sense of being unchallenged. You've earned the right to do what you want. It's the feeling of liberation that comes from mastering your own energy and possibly rising above challenges or competitors. You're not fighting for power anymore. You already have it. 3. To unlimited use of power. Now that you're in this position of victory, you could use your power however you want. There's no external force stopping you. But this is where responsibility comes in, because just because you can use power without limits doesn't mean you should. In a practical sense, in real life, you may find yourself in situations where you have a lot of influence, energy, or capability, and no one pushing back. The danger here is losing touch with responsibility or humility. It's easy to think, I've earned this. I'll do what I want. But true greatness, in the spirit of Gate 34, is not in indulging in unlimited power, but in containing it, directing it, and continuing to serve the whole. As a relevant example, imagine someone who has climbed the ladder at work through effort and raw energy. They now run the show. No one tells them what to do. They feel the rush of total power and are tempted to use it to push their own agenda, control others, or act impulsively. This line is the crossroads. Do you act from ego because you can, or from wisdom because you know better? Line 4 in human design is the influencer, the networker, the one who affects others through relationships and impact. So the use of power here doesn't just affect the self, it affects the community. That's why the ethical use of power matters even more. When you reach the higher expression of this line, you use your established strength to uplift others, not overpower them. You honor the weight of your influence, knowing that real leaders empower rather than dominate. You don't let victory turn into arrogance. If not aligned, power gets used for control, status, or manipulation. The person becomes self-serving, justifying actions with, I earned this. It can turn into entitlement or abuse of influence. Gate 34, line 4, triumph is about what you do after you've won. You have access to unlimited power, but true greatness lies in how you choose to use it. Will you be interested in the use of power for self-empowerment? Disregard the fact that it does not serve others? Disregard the collective impact? Disregard the way you externalize your power? This line tests your integrity when you're no longer restrained by limitations. Pluto exalted, a tendency in victory to restrain excessive power in favor of more subtle and covert styles. The inherent confidence to use power subtly. Line 4, the opportunist theme, thrives on relationships and contacts. You shine by opening doors for yourself and others. It has natural influence. Your power often moves through your circle. I know someone who can, rather than, I'll do it all myself. You seek consistency in your social position. Once you're in, you tend to stay and build from there. Now, in this line 4, we have Pluto exalted, mastery of the underworld. Pluto governs transformation, hidden depths, and the subterranean currents of power. Exalted here means its depths express as your greatest strength. 1. You don't need to broadcast your wins. You know your own potency and let it work quietly. 2. You're comfortable letting plans unfold beneath the surface, emerging at precisely the right moment. 3. You guide outcomes through those around you, mentoring, connecting, steering behind the scenes, rather than overtly commanding. Restrain excessive power in victory is about 1. Celebrate privately. Even when you've won big, you temper public triumph with humility. This keeps you unpredictable and respected. 2. Instead of marching in with banners, you quietly shore up alliances, shore up resources, and reinforce your position out of the spotlight. 3. Depth over display. You value the long game, gradual expansion of influence rather than flashy, short-lived victories. Gate 34, line 4. With Pluto, exalted isn't about the loud roar of victory, but the measured pulse beneath it. Your greatest power lies in knowing when to hold back, working quietly through your networks, and letting your influence ripple subtly so that every success you achieve becomes a foundation for deeper, longer-lasting impact. Mars in detriment. Ego gratification in the unrestrained use of power with impunity, inevitably leading to abuse. A lack of confidence that can lead to abuse of power. Mars symbolizes drive, courage, and assertiveness. In detriment, this energy is weakened or distorted, producing unrestrained impulsiveness, acting from raw anger or desire, without heed for timing or consequence. Ego-driven aggression, using force or intimidation to gratify the self rather than to achieve a higher purpose. Underlying insecurity, overcompensation, asserting power rashly to mask inner doubts. The first part of the theme, ego gratification. Because Mars's boldness is unchecked, there's a thrill in demonstrating dominance. Look at what I can do. Second part, impunity and overreach. In your networked role, you feel shielded. My connections back me, and may push boundaries you shouldn't. Third, inevitable backlash. Abuse of that privilege alienates allies, fractures trust, and ultimately weakens your position. Fourth part of the theme is about insecurity at the core. Beneath the bravado lies a fear that your network or role isn't truly earned, driving you to prove yourself through coercion. Indeed, a lack of confidence that can lead to abuse of power. Gate 34, line 4, with Mars in detriment, warns that untempered assertiveness in a networked role easily slips into ego-driven abuse. By pausing before you flex, seeking accountability, and investing in genuine competence, you transform raw impulse into a disciplined force that uplifts rather than undermines both your authority and your relationships. Ra said, when you get to the upper trigram, you get to the line of externalization. There is no question anymore that the power is there and they know it. They know that they have to put that power out across the channel. In this case, there are 3 channels. It is putting its power out in a very strong way. This line is called triumph. The freedom and absolute victory to unlimited use of power. Victory in this is being left alone. Victory is being allowed to survive out of your own power and not being interfered with, not being conditioned away from your individual responsibility for survival. In the White Book, the inherent confidence to use power subtly. These people are fixed in showing their power. They show less power the less they are interfered with. If you do not get in their way, you think that they are very nice. If you get in their way, they are nasty. If you do not get in their way, they get more and more confident as they grow older, and these are the kind of people that have a great reservoir of power, but they do not use it in an uncomfortable way. It is subtle. They know how to manage it. If that confidence is broken, and most of the time that happens already early in childhood, the moment that there is interference, you get this abuse of power. Then they are pushing harder and harder with their power in order to be able to get that triumph they know is inherently their right. This is also a gate that can lead to all kinds of problems. Violence is something that can also be there in the detriment of the fourth line. There is always the potential for abuse because people refuse to get out of the way. These are people that are pushed out of the way, finally, in that display of power. Ego gratification and the unrestrained use of power with impunity, inevitably leading to abuse. This is very important, for example, in children coming into the world. We have a whole generation that has been born with this Pluto transit. We have a whole generation of children that carry each of these lines, millions of them in the world now. They will come into their maturity in the new century. It is very important to be clear about that if you have a fourth line child in your life. You have to encourage their confidence by allowing them to express their individual process. If you do not encourage that confidence, you will have a child that will have all kinds of problems. By the way, the abuse in this can be brought out by a parent as a mirror. The parent says, "No, we do not do it your way," and they beat the child. You get the whole thing reflected back on the child. It is very important to keep in mind whenever you are looking at long-term transits that every day and every moment, there are thousands and thousands of children coming into the world with that configuration. This knowledge is very important for raising these children so that we have a generation of children who have great power, Pluto in 34, with the capacity to work this out as they have not had negative, better unaware, conditioning in their process. End of quote. Gate 34, line 5, annihilation, the total elimination of resistance. The Gate 34 holds pure raw power meant for action, survival, work, and empowerment. Its energy is only correctly accessed in response, especially for generators and manifesting generators. Gate 34 is not strategic or mental. It's instinctive, powerful, and physical. Now, in line 5, we have annihilation and the total elimination of resistance. 1. Annihilation. This is intense language. It means utter destruction, overpowering, or obliteration of anything that opposes. In this context, it refers to the use of such overwhelming power that nothing can stand in the way. 2. The total elimination of resistance. This line speaks to a force so dominant, so effective, that all opposition is swept aside. There's no negotiation, no compromise, just sheer dominance. This is not subtle. It's the power to break through, overtake, or outlast any obstacle. In work, someone with this energy may push through a massive project while others drop out from exhaustion. They outperform, outlast, and outfocus, not by strategy, but by raw inner drive. They don't wait for consensus. They move forward and plow through resistance. In conflict, they may shut down opposition so completely there's no room left for alternative views. This can be efficient, but also dangerous if unbalanced, because it may alienate or dominate others. In leadership, this energy can clear the path for others, like a bulldozer making way for the builders. But it must be aware of the impact of clearing, whether it's constructive or destructive. As we know, any line 5 is practical, universal, projected, and often seen as a fixer or hero. It carries powerful influence, but also projection from others. They see you as someone who can save the day or solve the problem. So with 34.5, others may project onto you the role of someone who can overcome anything, someone they rely on to break barriers. But if you're not using this power correctly or ethically, those same people may later blame or reject you for being too much. If you are aligned, you respond with your sacral center and apply your power where it's needed. You use your strength to remove true obstacles, not just things that annoy your ego. You eliminate resistance in service to a greater good, not personal conquest. You know when enough is enough. Of course, on your evolution path, there are some challenges to overcome, such as using force to dominate or bulldoze others to get your way, acting without response and just pushing, becoming insensitive, controlling, or intimidating, mistaking resistance as something that always needs to be destroyed rather than listened to. This line teaches that you may have the power to break through walls, but wisdom is knowing which ones need breaking and which are healthy boundaries. Sometimes, listening is stronger than forcing. So, Gate 34, Line 5, Ul, annihilation, is about having the capacity to eliminate resistance, to clear the way by sheer energy and drive. But it comes with a big question. Am I removing resistance in service of something greater, or am I just overpowering because I can? Used with awareness, this is incredible transformative power. Used without it, it can become destructive and isolating. Mars exalted, the power to destroy completely, and once this is accomplished, the ability to transfer the power to normal purposes. The resistance to release power other than when necessary. I remind you that Line 5 is the heretic visionary. Line 5 projects solutions onto others. People see you as someone who can fix, rescue, or revolutionize. Your network pins hopes on you. When you speak, your ideas carry weight beyond your immediate circle. There is a pressure to deliver. That external expectation can feel heavy. You learn to wield your power both to meet needs and to protect your own energy. The Mars exalted is in this line, mastery of destruction and rebuilding. Mars, in exaltation, expresses as disciplined, strategic, and precisely targeted force. 1. Surgical power. You know exactly how and where to apply force to clear the slate. No collateral damage. 2. Controlled release. You conserve energy, unleashing your full might only when the situation truly demands it. 3. Once the enemy or obstacle is removed, you seamlessly shift that same power into constructive, everyday uses. Let's analyze the theme, piece by piece. 1. Total reset. When a structure, pattern, or opposition must go, you can apply your full sacral force decisively, like pruning a diseased branch to save the tree. 2. Strategic containment. You instinctively hold back until the critical moment, so your destruction is precise and not wasteful. 3. Seamless transition. After the battle, you don't stay in combat mode. You recycle that same energy into growth, rebuilding, or routine tasks. 4. Conservation. Ethos. You resist deploying your full power frivolously. You reserve it for pivotal junctures where only decisive action will do. So, before you unleash, pinpoint exactly what needs dismantling. Habit, project, obstacle, so your action is clean and focused. Mars exalted thrives on strategic patience. Wait for the moment of maximum leverage, when resistance is weakest or clarity is highest. After a big destroy phase, use a short ritual, such as a walk, a breathwork session, or a quick journal entry, to mark the transition into normal purpose mode. Plan the reconstruction. Even as you prepare to dismantle, sketch out the after state. What will you build next? This blueprint lets you redirect momentum immediately. In a few words, Gate 34, Line 5 with Mars exalted arms you with pinpointed, disciplined power, able to obliterate what no longer serves. Then pivot that same force into everyday creation and progress. By reserving your might for genuinely pivotal moments and ritualizing the switch from destruction to construction, you ensure your energy yields both decisive breakthroughs and sustainable growth. Moon in detriment. A difficulty in shedding the patterns established to deal with resistance, symbolized by its phases, the feeling that nothing is permanently annihilated, the discomfort with the need to always release power. The moon governs cycles, instincts, and emotional tides. In detriment, its themes can become distorted. 1. Clinging to old patterns. You hang on to coping strategies long past their use because they once protected you from emotional storm surges. 2. Sense of impermanence. Like lunar phases that wax and wane, you may feel that no victory or release is ever final. Everything returns in some form. 3. Emotional restlessness. There's an underlying discomfort with letting energy go. Each release can trigger anxiety about what will fill the void. For a better understanding, let's analyze the sentences of this detriment piece by piece. 1. Difficulty shedding old coping patterns. When you face resistance, you instinctively revert to familiar power dumps, rituals, outbursts, or dramatic resets that once served but now feel stuck. 2. Nothing is permanently annihilated. Just as the moon returns from dark to full, issues you thought resolved tend to reemerge, revealing that emotional residues linger. 3. Discomfort with constant release. You carry a tension. You know you must release power to move forward, yet each act of release feels like an erosion of your emotional bank. Gate 34, line 5, with moon in detriment reminds you that emotional patterns don't simply vanish. They cycle back if unexamined. We have a clear explanation from Ra. I quote, "First line is the nature of the hexagram, and the fifth line is the way the world looks at it. Everybody projects onto those who carry the 34.5 that they have power. Due to that, they are rarely interfered with. The line says annihilation. The way in which we see that power at its universal level is that it eliminates everything. For some people, that is a frightening term. The total annihilation of resistance. It comes out of the projection. I have the 57.5, and I have 3 parts of the integration, but I do not have the 34. When I was in public school, there was a bunch of guys beating up weaker guys, a typical male trip, but they never bothered me. I did not have to do anything. I did not have to put on any scene. The fifth line always gets a projection. These people are being projected on as having so much power that you would not want to interfere with them because you will get burnt. Like the second line, it can be a paper tiger. Nobody is really sure because they are projecting onto that power. The resistance to release power other than when necessary. Because the power is already projected on them, they do not have to let it out all the time, only when there is interference. This is the kind of person where once they use their power, it enhances their power reputation 1,000 times. By the way, if they blow it, they really lose. The discomfort with the need to always release power. This is something that becomes very difficult for the fifth line. This sense of, no matter how powerful I am, no matter how much they project on me that I have the power, there will always be some force that will take it away from me by interfering with me. You see that, for example, in the paranoia of dictatorships. Everybody is projecting on the dictator that he has all of this power, but at the same time there can be a coup d'etat going on underneath. They are aware of that, and there is a part of them that says, all right, I have to keep on maintaining the power. And they get tired of being in control all the time, of having to control other people to keep them from interfering with them. End of quote. Gate 34, line 6, common sense. Knowing when enough is enough. Let's recap. Gate 34 is the most powerful gate in the human design chart. Pure, consistent sacral life force. It's the energy to act, respond, work, and empower, rooted in doing, not thinking. The power of Gate 34 must be aligned with response, not ego. Otherwise, it can overwhelm or burn out. 1. What does common sense mean in this context? It refers to mature judgment, practical wisdom, and an internal sense of balance. Unlike earlier lines that experiment or display power, line 6 sees the whole pattern and steps back. This line says, just because I can use all my power doesn't mean I should. This is the line of restraint, discernment, and right use of energy. 2. Knowing when enough is enough. This is about self-regulation, not being pushed by adrenaline, ego, or external validation. It's about tuning into the sacral's response and stopping when the energy is no longer correct. You know when to pull back from overworking. Stop pushing in relationships. Let go of control or drop the need to dominate. In work, a person with this line might naturally feel when they're at the point of burnout and pause instead of pushing further. They know that constant action doesn't equal efficiency. In conflict or leadership, they don't need to win every argument. They understand that power wielded without awareness destroys connection. They know when to step back, say less, or let someone else lead. In relationships, they know when to stop giving or stop chasing because they're in tune with healthy limits. Line 6 in human design is the role model, the seer, and the observer. It watches, learns from experience, and eventually embodies wisdom. So here, the power of Gate 34 becomes integrated, refined, and humbled. It's not about showing off power. It's about knowing exactly when and how to use it or not. If aligned, you are in tune with the higher expression of this line. You use your sacral energy in response and stop when the response fades. You live in a flow state, engaged but not overextended. You become a model of sustainable power, one who acts with purpose, not pressure. The low expression of this line is about ignoring internal signals and pushing too far, becoming burned out, exhausted, or resentful, thinking, if I stop, I'll lose my edge. And so you overgive and overdo or overcompensate. Gate 34, line 6, common sense is the final evolution of power. It's restraint after strength, wisdom after fire. It's knowing, I have nothing to prove. I just need to be aligned. When used well, this line becomes a living example of what true power looks like: quiet, responsive, and enough. The earth exalted, the good sense when having bitten off more than one can chew to spit part of it out, the restriction of the release of power when one does not have the strength to maintain it. Earth symbolizes grounding, stability, and the cycles of growth and harvest. Exalted here, its energy becomes 1. Practical wisdom, an intuitive sense of what will take root and what needs pruning. 2. Nurturing restraint, knowing not just when to push, but when to conserve so that energy isn't wasted. 3. Sustainable rhythm, aligning action with natural cycles, planting, tending, harvesting, resting, rather than forcing growth out of season. This is Earth exalted, mastery of grounding and nourishment. Breaking down the practical message, piece by piece from the sentence of the Earth exalted. 1. Spit out what you can't chew. When you've overcommitted, taken on too much responsibility, or too ambitious a project, Earth's wisdom urges you to release a chunk rather than choke on the whole. Like removing excess branches to let a tree flourish, you discern which parts of your load can be set aside without sacrificing overall integrity. 2. Restrict power release when strength is lacking. This is about conservation over exhaustion. Earth reminds you, if your reserves are low, don't broadcast full force. Instead, operate at a sustainable pace until your energy rebuilds. Cycle-aware action. Match your output to your current capacity. Much like sowing seeds only in fertile season, You hold back on power displays when the soil of your sacral reserve is lean. Gate 34, line 6 with Earth, exalted gifts you with the seasoned discretion to both wield your sacral power and pull back when resources run low. By embracing prudent release and pacing your efforts in harmony with natural cycles, you not only preserve your own vitality, but also become a living example of sustainable strength for those around you. Jupiter, in detriment. Enthusiasm overriding better judgment invariably leads to complications, the lack of restrictions that can sap one's strength. Jupiter symbolizes growth, optimism, and expansion. In detriment, its energy can become distorted as 1. Overzealous expansion, charging ahead without checking resources or risks. 2. Optimism bias, assuming all will go well, downplaying potential pitfalls. 3. Boundary erosion, neglecting limits, time, energy, scope. So enthusiasm outpaces sustainable capacity. If we look at the key line piece by piece, we can understand better this energy. 1. Enthusiasm overriding better judgment. Your natural role model impulse to inspire can tip into leap first, look later, leading you to bite off more than you can realistically digest. 2. Inevitable complications. When you expand too fast, gaps appear, missed details, unresolved dependencies, or exhausted allies, creating new problems that drain your sacral reserve. 3. Lack of restrictions that sap strength. Without clear boundaries, your generous drive can scatter. You wake up one day to realize you've committed your power everywhere and have little left for what truly matters. Gate 34, line 6, with Jupiter in detriment, cautions that unchecked enthusiasm, even from a place of genuine vision, can outstrip your capacity and create more work than you solve. By instituting clear limits, building in buffers, and pausing to test your excitement against reality, you preserve both your sacral strength and your role model integrity. Here is the wisdom of Ra for this line. When you get to 6th line, you get to the end of the whole process. If you look at the 20.6, you have the line of wisdom. If you look at the 10.6, you have the line of the role model. If you look at the 57.6, you have utilization, all of which talks about the fact there is much more involved in this life than just the release of power. These people learn it very early. Like all 6th lines, they are looking to the whole circuitry, and individuality is enormously complex. Common sense, knowing when enough is enough. Earth exalted. The good sense when having bitten off more than one can chew to spit part of it out. The classic story, you have somebody who gets in your way and you are a power person. You want them out of your way and you push them out of your way. You punish them in some way. But it does not stop. They still come back. They are still determined to get in your way. There is this sense of, how many times do I have to hit them? How often do I have to put them in their place? You take on this responsibility. You bite into this responsibility of maintaining your power so that you can survive. And then you discover, oh, one of my dogs went out and killed some chickens from my neighbor, so I put my dog on a chain for about 6 hours. She was in deep psychic pain about that treatment. Then I realized what I was doing, and I took her off the chain. My neighbor came back soon afterwards to tell me that my dog was wandering around. If you do not like it, shoot her. I will not continue to use this power because that is not what it is all about. There must be another way. The restriction of the release of power when one does not have the strength to maintain it. Why keep on dealing with all of this? Very often, 34.6 people just withdraw. They pull their power away and they simply say, enough is enough. I do not want to be like this. I do not just want to be able to survive by using my power in relationship to others because I know there is much more. You can thank the stars that we have a 6th line and its resonance in the 3rd line. This is what people call the beginning of our idealism, the beginning of the understanding that we are more than just an animal. There is something else than just maintaining our survival. There has to be. The lack of restrictions that can sap one's strength. The moment this kind of person constantly gets involved in this display of power, they just fall apart. They get very depressed. It is not what they want. They see that power is essential, but not that it has to be constantly used against somebody else. Somehow, there has to be a way, the example, the role model, in which that power can be used in a healthy fashion. It is not enough that it is there. There has to be much more. It goes to the 9.1, which is also in the sacral center. As we go around this wheel, we will see how all of these things are deeply related to each other. End of quote. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 34th gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 34th gate, 34th hexagram, right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix 4, consisting of following gates, 34, 20, 59, 55. People with great personal power and charisma who are busy attracting others with their busyness. Power and intimacy when directed by spirit serves humanity. Your energy has a great need to be busy. The channel 3420 is a main line of energy from the sacral center to the throat center and is about doing it, whatever it is. Beware not to get lost in your business and taken away from what's important to your soul. Make sure that you are doing things that are your passion and make your heart sing. Follow your human design type and strategy to stay focused and grounded. You are here to be very productive and drawn to secure relationships. Ultimately, you accomplish this goal by listening to your soul, not by just doing things. Juxtaposition, cross of power, consisting of following gates, 34, 20, 40, 37. Busyness focused on the pure display of charisma or power in support of the community, the entertainer or deal-making business executive. Your cross brings a lot of power and energy. You are here to exchange that energy for return. It might be in the form of entertainment, or it might be by being productive in other ways. You have power to do things that others are after. You are here to share the power and to get what you want. Make sure what you're after is what you want on the soul level and is not overly influenced by your ego. Left angle, cross of duality 2, consisting of following gates, 34, 20, 40, 37, people who bridge humanity's basic dilemma, duality, between individual charisma, selfishness, and communal responsibility, busyness properly aligned with loving communal support. Your cross has the energy to thrive both individually and as part of a community. Your challenge is to find the balance between these two different types of energy. You may often feel like being alone out of the control and restriction that being a part of group builds around you. Yet, in group situations, you thrive. You are here to make your contribution to the family, group, or community, even if you are not always happy being in that situation. You might find balance as an outside contributor or freelancer. If you enjoyed this, please share and subscribe. This will motivate me to post new learning materials in Human Design System. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Wait for notifications of this channel. There will be a step-by-step approach of everything you need, at least to understand your own chart. Thank you.